So here we go into chapter 2. We're at chapter 2 of Build King, and I was very excited for this chapter. It's very different from like when I get like a new chapter of something that I've deep into, even from hundreds of chapters, or even like Undead Unlock, where we're only like, what is it, like about to get 40, I think? Are we at 40? I don't remember the exact number, but you know what I mean. I think we're at 40. Either way, it's completely different of like an excitement when it's brand new versus something that is, you're seeing the story progress and you already have a whole know what's going on. It's more of just like, how does the stuff we know now develop further? And Build King is very fresh, and I like the manga because previous work Toriko, and I like the first chapter of Build King, so seeing things like progress and go further and seeing like how this world is all set up, I'm clearly very excited about it. And it was similar to like when Chainsaw Man first started. I was very excited just to see how the very beginning of it, what's gonna be the first like big bad guy, what is gonna be like the main character's first power up transformation kind of thing, first like new ability, any of that. The only thing that I would say like in Build King right now that I think needs to happen, but obviously we're only at chapter 2, so it's like maybe it'll happen later. I do think that it's gonna need a good female member of the main cast, because that's just one of those things. If you have like it would be in reverse, like if you had a very heavy female cast, like with a female main character, I would want there to be at least one male character that's cool. And that's one thing that like a lot of the newer Shonen Jump, because other series are completely different when it comes out, like a lot of older ones for Shonen Jump, like the female characters don't do a ton. And it's not like, oh, I want the female characters to do stuff. It's that I don't really like it when there are characters that don't do stuff and are kind of just there. So obviously when you have a lead character not doing anything when they're supposed to be important and to the story and directly tied to the characters that are doing important stuff, it's like it just makes their characters feel so much less important and so much less interesting, in my opinion. It's like, there's lots of different ways that characters can be, entertaining, well written, and fun. But I do think that relevance in the story obviously has to play a level into it. And that depends on the characters, but if you're in the main cast, like, should be a lot. But we can wait. I'm hoping for like a cool female character in this, but for the main cast, obviously we'll get people way more like along the line. Shimabakuro isn't known for like a lot of female characters, but I'm hoping he's he'll kind of like adjust that for this, because that is legitimately one of those things. Like, you have an interesting looking female character, a lot of guys will just at least try it out to see this character. And that's the way also like with certain characters. Like I've gotten people to start Fairy Tail just by showing pictures of Zeref, just showing like panels and stuff, because he's such an interesting character. And obviously he's got that pretty boy vibe to him, so that's something draws him in. And then this mangaka, like, I already know that Build King is going to be very crazy in terms of like action and like big feats and stuff, power levels and whatnot. So knowing that and then combining it, like if we get some badass female lead character, I know people are gonna like that. It's like in Black Clover when we got Mereoleona. Like, we've had Noelle and some other female characters, but when we got one that was just a absolute monster compared to the other characters we had at the time, or at least around them, like Mereoleona was very much like a very fresh kind of like punch into like the readers, and everybody was really happy when that happened. But anyway, going into the last chapter, like it ended, Tonkachi beat the boss House Eater, and now like they're assuming, well, what happened, but they see someone on the horizon coming in. They think, okay, the master carpenter, that guy Shovel, sent their guy to come pick him up. I like that his name is very memorable, very easy to go off of, but also it probably gonna have some stuff to do with like his name, or sorry, not his name. His name probably has something to do with like his character design overall, like his power. Like, he probably uses a shovel as a weapon or some form of setup with his power. It has like digging or whatnot, which would be cool, because I think the only character otherwise I can think of that has a shovel was Jack from Mar, because he was like a farmer, so he had this battle shovel that had different powers and stuff. So that would be really cool to see. I like that the characters already have very different weapons than standard, because not often does, like, if you give a main character a melee weapon, do they not have a sword. Like, Tonkachi having a hammer, in my opinion, already gives him like an extra point in like character design, just because for one, I love swords. Like, obviously, like, swords are badass. People really like swords, and it's like the most stand out of melee weapons. I feel like everybody knows that. And, you know, there's all these different kinds and stuff. They're set up different kinds of fighting styles and cultures and stuff, and then how they're kind of also done in fiction to kind of do twists on that or do their own styles and whatnot. But I do really like it when I see characters not like, it's like, oh, this character is going to have a weapon as their fight, you know, part of their fighting style. They usually end up having swords because, you know, swords are, again, very popular, very cool, very easy to have a cool sword, and very easy to have a character look badass with a sword. But you don't see a lot of something like a hammer, and I like that a lot. I think that already, like I've said in the previous video, and I've said it before in a couple other chapter 1 reviews of different series, I do generally think early on, whatever the main character's power or in this case weapon and stuff is, I think it's important because it's something that the reader realizes very early on, this is what we're going to be seeing, and this is what, you know, assuming that Build King survives the axe, which again, fingers crossed, I'm hoping it does. It's something that you're going to see the main character, you know, utilize a lot. And I think him having this cool hammer and then very strong, very high physical strength, and on top of that, I like that his hammer has essentially a dual set of abilities, and well, really it is. And I do also, on top of that, like that there's a small distinction in which side it you know, is which, because the other side, because we find out, like, not only one side is essentially like big heavy hitter, while the other side is kind of like a repair buff thing, and I think that's actually really cool. And on top of that, it sets up like questions. Is it going to be like just for like houses and materials, or is later Tonkachi going to be able to like hit himself with it and then physically buff up like his body, like give himself a very strong physical boost or something, maybe make himself more durable, or even like maybe even a degree of healing, I would imagine, if it can repair houses and stuff. Either way, I think it's cool. I like that the repair kind of buff side has those two little markings on each side near the back. They kind of just like two like indents. I think that's neat in just the design itself, because later in the series, if we see him hit one side and maybe it's like a kind of like a weird setup scene, and then you look at it, it's like, oh, he hit him with the repairer kind of the buff side, so you know it's gonna have some weird outcome that he's forming a strategy and not just trying to hit him really hard. So the chapter starts out like you see like what they thought was a ship coming, but it's actually a house on like a little island, which I liked. And before finding the context, my assumptions were that this is going to be like their base, which I like it a lot. I thought it was a really cool way to kind of like give the main characters something very small scale yet cool early on, because it's essentially a mimic. Because you have like a mimic, you know, it looks like a treasure chest. You open, it's actually a monster. It eats a big excited anxious adventurer thinks they just stumbled upon something good. So in this case, they're doing that but with houses. In an idea, I'm guessing these what are they called, the monster houses, I think that's what they're called. I'm trying to go through the chapter really quick. Yeah, house beast, that rather, not the movie Monster House, but the house beast. You essentially have that. There's different kinds. Like it explains a little bit the house eaters and their types of trolls that further back in their history had to deal with these like living houses, and it showed a bunch of different kinds, which I really liked, because if anybody who's read the one shot, one of like it instead of it was a different kind of like setup. Like the main character Kugi, he was already like a really good builder, and he was with one of these living houses, and it was like it was called Build King because that was like the king house, and it looks like one of the designs resembles them a little bit, but I like that that's carrying over, and there's going to be more of them, and it's shown in different designs. Like you have one that looks like a skyscraper one in the back, one that looks kind of like a normal house, one that looks more like some form of coliseum or something. It's got like these big pillars like set up to it. I like that a lot. I actually really liked that about this chapter. That was probably one of my favorite parts, just because it was a really cool foreshadowing, but it also had something from the one shot that was brought over into this, which the one shot I think the one shot was a better first chapter, just because it had like the villain group, and you got to see like a lot of bigger stuff like early on. And the main character, I like the main character had the steel hair, so he could use his hair as essentially nails and stuff. But I think the official first chapter is better for the long run of like how they changed it, and because Kugi in the original one, in the one shot rather, was a bit too strong early, and obviously like he was already a really good carpenter, and that's something that Tonkachi doesn't seem to really be good at. but whereas it's not like I think I already mentioned Black Clover in this review, right? It's not like Asta where he couldn't use magic and he's in a world of, you know, wizards and stuff. Tonkachi can eventually learn how to be good at building houses, but right now his whole thing is instead he's building peace. He's not thinking of building something on the physical side of things, like again the houses, though he's still trying. But when he talks about building peace, he's more thinking of building up like the safety and kind of tranquility of people. And I really liked in this chapter too of when the people, like the animal guys on this island, like these kappas, like they thought that he saved them when he went up against the house beast, and it looked like he defeated them, and they're all like holding him up, like all these little animal guys, and like hooray, like, you know, doing the whole hero thing, and he's just happy as can be. He's like got tears in his eyes that he thought that, you know, these guys are happy he did a good thing. I thought that was really just like a really nice little character moment. And again, I like Tonkachi as a character already. I think he's a really cool character just from what we've gotten. And like we got this guy that showed up in the chapter. I'm trying to remember his name. He was introduced, Nana Schreider, I think his last name was pronounced. I thought he had a pretty funny entrance too. When he's like, you see like, oh, it's not a boat, it's a house, and then you see him swimming, and the first panel it's like he's swimming like a human swimming aggressively, like keeping up with this like a damn dolphin, and then the next panel it's like he's trying to get his pants that are on the island, and it's just like a shot of his ass. I thought that was pretty funny because it was super unexpected in the way that his character was kind of introduced, and like what his first kind of setup was in this. Like he had a cool first kind of like first chapter like attack and feat. Like he's using this whip, and he says like shingle stroke, so I'm wondering if like his whole thing, obviously shingles like on the roof and stuff, if that's gonna later play into like how he fights and stuff, if he's gonna have some like really cool like just way to implement shingles into, I guess, his attacks. It's kind of hard to really think about because it's such a weird fighting style already. But on top of that, again, like I like that the manga is giving them all different weapons, and they're all weird weapons. Like this guy's using a whip. Like you don't see many whip people, and usually when you do see a whip, it's on a female character too. So him having this I thought was neat. And then like just the first like attack, he splits like this little area in the water, and like his whip, it like just from the smack is enough to split this house in half, and then it repairs itself. I like that. I like that you got to see this character introduced, like already showing a superhuman thing that he's keeping up with his house in the water. You got a funny moment where he's like chasing it, trying to get his pants back, you know, and even had a goofy butt shot. I thought that, again, that was pretty comedic. And then like a cool action scene, but at the same time you also see this house repair itself after that. So it's like, okay, we're finding out a little bit about like the nature of these house beasts. So I thought this was a really good second chapter. And when you have them like Tonkachi, he went for 5 meters. So far we've seen his at least maximum. We don't know if it's his limit, but his maximum is 10. I'm guessing it's more than that because he didn't seem very exhausted after that, but also like he, you know, this takes place right after that, so it's not like he's worn down, recovered and stuff. I don't remember any signs that he was worried. No, because he tried to talk to the boss House Eater afterwards. He was very comfortable about it, but he went for 5 meters and then went and smashed it, because maybe 10 is his max, but he didn't use full strength or something. But either way, he went for 5 meters and went for it, and like you saw a struggle. You saw like the hammer hit and he gets bounced back. Granted, he used the repair side, or like the buff side, and not the destruction side, so maybe the struggle is just because he didn't use the side that he meant to. Either way, I like that there was some form of struggle, because it made them, because usually when the main character starts out in the early chapters, they're very powerful compared to like the other people that are kind of like set up as their peers, and you know, early bad guys are usually just for like getting a display of like fights and character abilities and kind of like exposition and whatnot. So seeing the main character struggle already like this, I thought was cool. The funny part when this guy Nana gets his pants back, and it's like he's like talking about how like he was coming for these guys, and again, also really liked when he was talking about like coming for them, he's talking about how dangerous the seas are, and he's like talking about how like the ocean is like in complete anarchy, and Tonkachi's like the construction of the ocean is still incomplete. I really like that he thought of that as like the whole setup. Like you have the ocean, you know, the idea of, you know, this massive body of water connect to all these other massive bodies of water, and how like the weather works and all these different kind of factors. can make, you know, massive storms and waves and stuff. But the way he's thinking it, because he thinks, you know, he wants to make things peaceful. So how do you make the ocean peaceful? Eventually, like in his idea, probably we're gonna see like him. We're probably eventually gonna see him like go up to like next time maybe he returns to the island way later and he's way stronger. Like the ocean going crazy and he probably pulls out his hammer, claps it on the ocean, and it just kind of stills out. Something just super badass and powerful like that, and with like a callback. But I really liked how when he looked at like the state it was in, how dangerous it was, in his mind it's just not complete, and it'll be complete when it's like makes it more peaceful. I like that. I really like that about his character setup. But when we found out a little bit about Nana's character, and again I like that there was like the note with him having the house having treasures and stuff, kind of have that like mimic vibe to it. But when Nana originally found it, he was like, you know, just on some debris from his ship, and he's just kind of like, man, this sucks, I gotta figure out what something to do. But first he's gotta take a shit, and he's like found this house, and he's like, maybe I can use their bathroom, trying really hard to like go over to get inside, can't get in there, and he's like, whatever, and he just kind of, you know, takes his pants off, probably wants to dry off too, and just kind of like squats down like off of the side for the ocean. And then the house just takes off, and you see him fall in the water, no pants, and he's just chasing it afterwards. I thought this was funny. I like that this character, he was introduced with a good kind of just straight goofy moment, and it's done in a way that you can kind of understand it. This guy, he's just like, man, I got sent on this job to get these guys, because he's also an apprentice of Shovel, so like he's you know, he's their senior, so he's going to get these guys, so he probably understands like, I gotta do it, and it makes sense that you know, my master would send me on this journey, and he probably doesn't want to disappoint and whatnot. But at the same time, he gets a shipwrecked, and he's just like in the ocean on this like single piece of driftwood or whatever, and on top of the bad state he's probably already in, and then he realizes, man, I gotta take a shit on top of everything else that's just giving me a bad day. And then something in his mind, he thinks is good happening, and he finds his house, and then he goes there, and it kind of just goes off, and he loses his pants in the process. I thought that was pretty funny. And then he's actually pretty strong, his connection to Shovel and stuff. But the end of the chapter, I really like that they got this house as like I'm assuming their base. Like, I don't know if it's gonna be able to like walk around with them. It's like on this little island, you know, so maybe it'll have legs and it'll be able to travel, or maybe Renga will be able to make it some form of wheels or something. Something that I really like the idea of, assuming the series makes it, and I'm hoping it does. It looks like it's being fairly well received. Not like smash hit crazy, everyone's super into it, but people at least that I've talked to that have read it seem to either be like kind of confused at the weird premise. Otherwise, they like it just because, you know, it's fun, it's unique, it has a very fresh style, yet it also has that kind of like old 90s shonen vibes to it. But I like with the addition of the house that, with the main characters being carpenters and everything being around carpentry, that if the house or the landmass around the house, and maybe like more houses are added onto it, but imagine like later on, if there's more additions to the house and we see the house get bigger as the series goes, that would remind me a little bit of like Toriko's full course menu, of like how that was like growing with the series as like an additional side thing, and it doesn't have to be directly in the plot. It's just a cool thing to see grow as the story goes on. So again, I like this. It's probably soon, the next couple chapters, these will get a lot shorter because this is still early stuff. I'm really kind of just going over one of the things that's obviously getting put into each of these right now is probably going to be for a couple more reviews. It's just talking about the additional small things that I really like about this. Like, again, Tonkachi using a hammer. I like that a lot, just for example. But I enjoyed this. I thought this was really fun, and I really want to see where this goes. So other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, but friend the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. Other than that, I appreciate everybody's already subscribed, and I thank you all for listening. Bye.